George Lucas, amazing producer, incredible world builder, personal hero to me. I love George Lucas as a producer, and as a creator of worlds, he's one of the best that's ever lived.
I want to see it for the visuals, but I never heard much storyline-wise about it. But why do you think he is a lousy director? Welcome back to Blam Blam Truckers. What are we talking tonight about, Beas?
Tonight we're talking about George Lucas, the flanneled one, the creator of Star Wars, the creator of Indiana Jones, and my proposition is that he is a lousy director, but one of the world's greatest producers in the history of film.
Oh, I guess to start off with, why do you think he is a lousy director?
Oh, that's an easy one to answer. I'm going to answer your question with a question. Fuse, are you a big fan of George Lucas as a director?
The only thing I think I've watched where he actually directed fully on his own was probably Phantom Menace.
All right. Can you name your top 10 favorite movies directed by George Lucas?
No.
Do you remember that this is a trick question?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, we had this conversation a few years ago, late at night. I was hoping he wouldn't remember at all, but he did. That's a trick question. George Lucas has not directed 10 films. George Lucas has directed 7 films. I can name them all in chronological order because it's only 7. Can you name them all?
No,
Would you like
but
to
I
take
think
a guess?
I know what THX 1138 is one of them, isn't it?
THX 1138 is the first feature film George Lucas ever directed.
I think technically he has director's credit on A New Hope, doesn't he?
He is the director of A New Hope. That was the 3rd film he ever directed, which, by the way, is officially Star Wars.
Yes. It became New Hope later, technically. Did he do Graffiti? American Graffiti?
American Graffiti was the 2nd film George Lucas ever directed.
So Empire was Irvin Kushner.
Yes, brilliant.
Jedi, I forgot who did Jedi. Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace is the 4th movie he ever directed.
Okay, I'm guessing
5
he
and
directed
6 should be pretty easy.
2 and 3 in the Star Wars saga. So
that's right.
Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith.
Those are the first 6 movies George Lucas ever directed.
What was number 7?
Oh, if you're a Lucas fan, you'll know.
Shakespeare in Love? Just kidding.
No. Shakespeare Out of Love? No.
George Lucas in Love? No. No. What was it?
Red Tails.
Oh,
the black pilots in World War II.
Right. It looked interesting, and it looked like it had a lot of
fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, back in the day, I wanted to see it for the visuals, but I never heard much storyline-wise about it. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. Well, I guess it is what we're talking about to a degree.
Actually.
How was the movie since he directed it?
It was okay.
So not bad, but not...
It wasn't great.
There's a reason why it's not one of the top movies of all time.
George Lucas wrote that movie to bring attention or awareness to black fighter pilots in World War II, which is what it's about. The Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen. But there's been other movies about that, including the Tuskegee Airmen, that were just better films. I love George Lucas as a producer, and as a creator of worlds, he's one of the best that's ever lived. Star Wars is just, influenced heavily by both Dune and the Foundation saga by Asimov. Very heavily by Dune, to the point where Herbert Abbott, who wrote Dune?
Frank Herbert?
Frank Herbert. The author of Dune actually said repeatedly during his life that Star Wars was ripping him off. Influenced very heavily by those, and Buck Rogers and Hidden Fortress. He had a lot of influences. Remember, kids, if you borrow from one person, it's plagiarism. If you borrow from a lot of people, it's research.
Inspiration.
Yeah, there you go. I like the hands. That was nice. They weren't jazz hands, but it was still nice.
I was going for SpongeBob.
Oh, then you hit it. That's plagiarism, not inspiration. No, anyway. Yeah, George Lucas is a fantastic world creator. It's just amazing, all the things he puts together. Amazing producer. He's produced some of the top grossing films of all time. He did not direct any of the Indiana Jones movies. He was a producer on the Indiana Jones movies. I'm a big fan of George Lucas. I even liked Howard the Duck, which a lot of people did not.
I enjoyed watching it as a kid, although it scared the crap out of me toward the end.
You haven't watched it again as an adult?
Oh, I have, and I understand why people don't like it, but I liked Green Lantern, so.
Well, there you go. I still liked it as an adult. I thought it was a well-made movie. But one of the reasons I say George Lucas is not a great director is not just because he's only directed 7 films. It's because of what actors say about him in interviews, the actors he's directed, of which there are very few. Harrison Ford very famously, this is a quote from Mark Hamill, very famously said to Lucas during the filming of Star Wars, "You can write this stuff." Harrison Ford did not use the word stuff. "You can write this stuff. That doesn't mean I can say it." Mark Hamill tells a story, and he said he'll remember this for the rest of his life. And he remembered it from 1976 when they were filming it, all the way up until he was doing interviews on the Graham Norton show for what was it was number 8, 6, yeah, so number 8 there, Last Jedi. He was doing interviews on the Graham Norton show, and he still could rattle the line off about something about it didn't matter when we were on Solust or however he pronounced it. It was just this. It was about 3 sentences, and he had to say it rapidly, very, very fast. And I don't know how he pulled it off. I don't have it memorized what he said, but it was ridiculous how much verbiage he was getting in there. But that's George as a writer. As a director, he couldn't. He didn't find a way to rework this for his actors to help them get through it and understand it. He didn't sit down and talk to them about it. George Lucas is a very quiet man from all accounts until he gets passionate about something. He is a nerd's nerd. There's a reason why we call him the flannel one.
I'm just laughing because I'm a fairly quiet person, and then we had last episode.
Yeah, well, anybody who gets passionate about something gets excited and starts talking about it. He's not a great director by all accounts of people who've been directed by him, which are not that many people. Richard Dreyfuss did not have a lot of good things to say about George Lucas's directing. He had a lot of great things to say about George Lucas, as does Harrison Ford, as does Mark Hamill, as does anybody who's ever worked with him. Has lots of glowing and wonderful things to say about the man, but he is not a great director. A great director talks to his actors or her actors. They talk with the actors. They make sure they understand the scene, what they want out of the scene, because the director is the one who gets the performance out of the actor. They know what shots they want. Lucas is great at knowing what shot he wants. He's great at knowing what he wants the film to look like. He's great at knowing what story he wants to tell, but one of the main jobs of the director is interacting with the actors. And Harrison Ford very famously said, George Lucas only has 2 directions as a director. One is same thing, only faster. And the other direction he gives is same thing, only better. What are you supposed to do with that? Some actors are always going to give an amazing performance. Robert Downey Jr. is going to give the best performance he can in any scene, especially in the second half of his career.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart will always give the best performance he can give. And these people tend to rise above the material. Who was the guy from Shawshank Redemption? Not the main guy, but the guy who played Red.
Morgan Freeman?
Thank you! That was the name I was trying to think of. Was Morgan Freeman and Robert Duvall. And we just talked about him a couple of episodes back. The guy who played Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie.
Jeff Daniels. Or not Jeff Daniels. Jeff Bridges.
Well, both of them, actually. Jeff Daniels always gives a good performance, too, even if I don't like the stuff he's in. But you watch a Robert Duvall picture, and it can be a lousy movie, and he's still giving a fantastic performance. You can watch a Morgan Freeman movie, and you may not like the movie, but you believe he is that character.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an actor who does not need a great director to bring out their best performance. But it's nice to have a director who can bring out your best performance. Clint Eastwood is famous for bringing out amazing performances in people. Rob Reiner?
Rob Reiner?
Yes, Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner is known as an actor's director. He's very, very famous for bringing out amazing performances out of people. You may not like him. You may not like his politics. You may not like how outspoken he is about his politics. You may love that he's outspoken about his politics. But we don't care about any of that. We're talking about how good of a director he is. He directed The Princess Bride, and he can get. He directed A Few Good Men. Rob Reiner, as a director, is one of the best directors in film and from that time period, from the 80s to the 2000s. Rob Reiner is one of the best directors out there.
Those two are two of my top films.
Yeah, they're great films. He gets amazing performances out of actors, whether they're great actors or not, because he's been an actor. He knows how to do that. George Lucas does not. He's a quiet guy. He knows what he wants his vision to be. He'll talk to you about it beforehand. He'll talk to you about it afterwards. But during the actual performance, he is not getting the best performances out of people. One of the reasons that the Star Wars, the first movie, Star Wars: A New Hope, was so successful is not because of George Lucas's directing, but because you had the guys playing Obi-Wan Kenobi and Grand Moff Tarkin were two of the greatest stage actors of their time, of their generation.
Alec
Alec
Guinness
Guinness,
and wow, Tarkin. I just lost his name.
Peter something, right?
Peter.
One day later.
He's going to look it up on Google anyway. So
Yeah.
Rob Reiner, if you're an actor and you're not a very
Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing, thank you. Rob Reiner is going to get an amazing performance out of somebody. Quentin Tarantino is famous for getting. His famous line is, "I only need one good take." That's all I need. I need one take. And he knows what he wants. He knows roughly how to get it out of people. Him and Jamie Foxx, he had to coach Jamie Foxx a number of times for Django Unchained, a movie I still haven't seen. I probably should see it, but I'm not comfortable with. I'm not a very big fan of Quentin Tarantino, honestly. But
fair enough.
Then I watched. One of my buddies made me watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was fantastic. I'm not a big fan of on-screen gore, which you get a lot of in Tarantino films. He was very famous for that with Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, both movies I watched. I didn't watch a lot of Tarantino after that. Those movies were not for me. That's okay. I'm not degrading those movies. Those were good movies, but I didn't like that. And that's fine. I don't have to like it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That sound
makes
fair to
perfect
you?
Sense.
I can still appreciate how good the film is without necessarily enjoying it. In fact, the guy who plays Crenshaw in our RPG on Sunday night hit me after he watched the movie Gladiator because I gave him my spoiler-free review of it beforehand. Actually, I didn't give it to him. I gave it to you, and you gave the wrong review to him.
Oh.
Because you guys went and saw it together.
Oh, okay.
So I saw Gladiator opening night because I didn't even pay for it. This is a Russell Crowe movie. So we're in college, and a couple of my buddies were like, "Hey, let's go do something." And I'm not doing anything, so I'm like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm working at the movie theater, and I got so many free tickets I can use every month. You want to go see Gladiator?" Okay. So it was a big date night, and they were getting as many people as they could because this one guy was trying to have a good time with this new girl, and he wanted to impress her with how many friends he had and how cool he was, and he wanted to stack the odds and have a bunch of her friends and a bunch of his friends. So some of these people were paying for their tickets. I was not. I got brought along to be one of the cool friends because I knew everybody who was going. So I was there to make jokes and ease the tension while I paid for my own dinner while we were at Denny's and whatnot, and just to make things a fun night. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew I was getting to go see a free movie. So I go see Gladiator. At the time, I'm actually taking class on the Roman Empire. And I'm picking out, I got about half of the anachronisms, the things that don't actually fit in the time period. I got about half of them. My teacher was very disappointed. I got more than anyone else in the class, but my teacher was very disappointed in me that I only got half. Luckily, it wasn't for my final grade or even a grade. So anyway, I watched the movie, and my feeling on Gladiator was I did not particularly enjoy that movie. I thought it was well made. I thought the characters were interesting. I thought the story was good, but there wasn't anyone in the film that I actually identified with that really drew me into the film. There wasn't one character that actually I identified with and drew me into the film, which is something as a writer you want to be looking for, and as somebody who's watching these movies, you're going to be looking for. Like, there was no Luke Skywalker in Gladiator. There were a bunch of people seeking vengeance, and I'm not a vengeance guy or their own advancement. It wasn't me back then. It's still not me today. I don't ever want to be a vengeance guy. It comes out once in a while, but I don't like that guy. I don't like the Beas that is seeking vengeance on people. He's not nice. And he does mean things, and I don't want to be him. It's very weird talking about myself in the third person, but there you go. So I just didn't identify with anyone in the film. So Beas asks me about it. He comes back, hey, we're going to go see Gladiator tonight. I heard you saw it opening night. What did you think of the film? I'm like, and that's pretty much the review I gave. The production values were high. It was interesting characters. It was a good story. The action was fantastic. But I didn't really like it because there wasn't anyone I really identified with it. So our buddy Crenshaw comes back, and I'm in his room, and I'm pointing again to my screen. I don't know where Views is going to be when we actually post this. And I'm in his room playing on his computer on his EverQuest account. This is before I had my own computer and my own EverQuest account, which would not be far away, by the way. And so I'm just over there. He gave me permission. He's off to go see Gladiator with a bunch of his friends, and I'm like, hey, have a good time. I'm gonna work on this character.
My computer was somewhat of a communal computer back in the day.
Computers were not as ubiquitous then as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't as cheap either.
Yeah.
So Crenshaw is the first one to come back into the room, and I'm lost in the game. And he just comes up, punches me in the head. I'm like, it wasn't hard. Like, it didn't hurt. It got my attention though, and it got me killed in the game, which is even worse. So he punches me in the back, and I'm like, what? What was that? What the hell? What was that for? He goes, why didn't you said that Gladiator was a bad movie. No, again, he didn't hit me hard. It wasn't like I was in pain or anything. It was just getting my attention. And I'm like, I never said that. He said, well, Beas said you said that. I said, I never said that. He said, well, what did you say? And I'm like, I thought it was a good movie, and I didn't like it because I didn't like none of the characters I had identified with. And he goes, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I can see where you were with that, or something to that effect. And I look back at the screen, and my magician was dead.
Could have played a paladin.
Probably still would have been dead. Going back to the whole directing thing, that was Ridley Scott who did Gladiator, right?
I believe
Another
so, yes.
great director.
Mm-hmm. Also did Alien, if I remember correctly.
I think so. Sounds right. You truckers can all check that out down in the comments down below. You can let us know what we're right and wrong about, what we don't remember from 30 years ago. With a quick Google search, could answer all of our questions. Google, this is how long ago it was. Google was in beta, if it even existed at the time. So, George Lucas, amazing producer, incredible world builder, personal hero to me for his world building and his capacity to get people to work together to produce a movie. I've studied him quite a bit. I've read his unauthorized biography. His first wife is a better editor than him by far. Marcia Lucas is credited repeatedly by many, many people. And at one point, even by George Lucas, though I don't know if he still says it himself, but Marcia Lucas is credited with saving Star Wars in the edit. There were so many different scenes George had filmed to tell this story, including going to Sullust or however you pronounce that planet's name, that you just do not see in the film because it wasn't needed. Watching A New Hope, watching the first Star Wars movie, Star Wars, it is a very tight movie. You can take very little out of that film and have it still make sense. So you've got the bare essentials. It is an incredibly well told story, incredibly tightly told. I think one of the only movies that I think everybody would know that was a tighter story was the original Rocky movie. Rocky. That's probably the tightest movie I've ever seen as far as minimums of what you need. You can't take anything out of that film. But yeah, George Lucas, again, he's in the news right now as we're filming this for supporting the current Disney regime as they are going through a vote to change up the board. A lot of fans of Star Wars, old school fans, feel betrayed by Lucas supporting Disney. They feel betrayed by where Star Wars has gone because, honestly, Star Wars has left their old fans behind. They have not been seeking the old fans, as we've talked about here. It's Disney's property now. They can chase whatever audience, customer base they want. And remember, it is a customer base. If you ever stop thinking of the customer as the customer, you're going to hurt yourself from a business perspective. And that's true of every business. So one of my old bosses always used to say, the customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer. And that means you should be treating your customers with respect. You should be trying to earn their business. You should be, if you want to stay in business, you need customers. So respect them. The customer is not always right, though, and that's okay. Wrestling does that a lot in the WWE. The customer wants the babyface to win all the time, mostly, in general. But if the babyface wins all the time, then they never have any real challenges, and you'll lose your customer. Because conflict drives story, and the WWE is a storytelling organization. So they don't always give the customer what they want, but they do usually try and respect the customer and give them what the product that the customer is looking for, which is a good story, which is really what the customer wants more than they want the babyface to win all the time, the hero to always win. And if you're actively trying to get rid of your customer base and get a new one, that's your business, and hopefully you succeed at it. But yeah, that's a lot of the old school customers who wanted George Lucas who thought George Lucas agreed with them because they've changed George Lucas's story. He very famously came out and called Disney white slavers. Did you see that? Do you remember that a couple of years back?
No.
Yeah.
But...
When the sequel trilogy was coming out, he did an interview and he called Disney white slavers, and now he's siding with them. So people feel betrayed. He said these Star Wars, all of these stories that I sold them were my children, which is a rough analogy. That's going to break down pretty quick why you're selling your children. But in the sense that he birthed these stories, he created these characters, and he thought he was selling them to people who would treat them with respect, and instead he started calling them white slavers. And then a few years later, during the proxy fight, which is going on right now, he sides with the people who he previously had called white slavers. So he's in the news for that. There's a lot of comments going on about that, and I just wanted to get it out there that George Lucas is still one of, if not the greatest producers in the history of film. You can just list off all the movies he's produced. You can do that easily, starting with Indiana Jones and Star Wars and American Graffiti and THX 113H and Howard the Duck and young Sherlock Holmes, and he's made a lot of movies. He's produced a lot of movies. Just a fantastic. And then he created ILM, Industrial Lights and Magic, which is one of the main special effects companies for Hollywood for decades. Just a prolific and amazing man, but a lousy director. He is. I'm not. I like the guy. I have all sorts of praise for him, but know your limitations. There's been all sorts of things in this life that used to be great at, or at least good at. I used to be able to weld. Not well, but good enough to do plumbing. I haven't picked up a torch to do any welding in over 20 years. I'm pretty sure I could still do it for home repair, but I don't expect to be able to do a 5-minute job in 5 minutes anymore. We all have skills, and some people are great. I can't play the guitar. I've tried a few times to learn, and I'm just not very good at it. It's ironic, because when I was trying to learn how to play the trumpet, I was very quick to pick it up. But they're two very different instruments.
Definitely.
And I don't have a teacher this time. Maybe if I had a teacher to teach me guitar, it'd be faster. Everybody has different skill sets, and George Lucas has a lot of great skill sets, and directing is just not one of them. Anything you'd like to add?
Disney has Marvel. WB has DC. So I think I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. If any of you truckers out there in Blam Blam Trucker Land happen to know anyone over at DC that I could pitch a movie to, or how I would go about doing that, please let us know. Contact us through YouTube, or we now have a single Instagram post, or our Facebook page. We are the Blam Blam Truckers, and we're getting an email address one of these days, and we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get some info on how to do that. I have a lot of great stories I'd love to pitch for DC movies over to the WB and whatever they're calling themselves these days, Time Warner Discovery. If you know David Zaslav, I doubt he handles these things personally, but hey, let him know I'm looking to do, and I'd like all the help I can get. Beas, you want to lead us out, or shall I?
We will see you later. We'll see you, truckers. Thanks for watching.